Hey everyone, and welcome to this new video about decision matrices. I've been waiting to make this video for quite a while because students have a lot of questions on it, and they always have decisions to make, and don't we all? So let's see what kind of drama we can avoid. Okay. Um, when it comes to decision matrices, obviously it's about decisions, and they have to somewhere along the line they have to be made, and there are always several alternatives. So could be cars or um, where you're going to go to school next. I'm not sure, but you got choices to make between several alternatives. Usually, sometimes just between two, but more often than not, there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's what competing criteria are about. So you don't always just pick the cheapest thing. We live in an age where we've got all sorts of stuff to choose from. So you might look at quality or access, or who knows, there's a lot of different criteria that you're going to base your decision on. Might be service, might be whether it's your brother-in-law, that owns a company, I don't know. So and each one of these criteria are of varying levels of importance. Some things are more important. Is the color critical to you? Well, then make sure we know that. Okay. So there various things are more important than others, but that doesn't mean that the other things aren't important. So when we go through this uh, decision matrix, we will end up with scores, and those scores will hopefully indicate the better and worse choices. It's not about definitely making this decision, and this thing is absolutely going to tell you it's like magic, or it's sacred or something like that. That's not the point. The point is to show sometimes what's better and sometimes worse, and sometimes you're surprised. So um like I said, we could use it maybe for buying a car, or home. I have actually, in fact, used this to buy cars and our first house, and it was highly effective in what its job was, and we ended up getting that house or that car usually that rated the top of this. I've never bought a CNC machine, so there's that, but you could use it for that, sure. Maybe hiring a new employee. Maybe they score in certain ways and some things are more important than others. You can clearly do it for that. And maybe if you're going to be transferring to another school or something like that, choosing a college or maybe a career path that you prefer. Maybe you've got job offers and you can use it for that too. So this can be absolutely used for all of these kinds of decisions. Now, um, so the whole purpose is to make these good decisions. Well, let's go through how that can happen. First off, it helps clearly organize the criteria and the priorities of these different alternatives. And it forces an analytical evaluation of those criteria and allows you to analytically compare those alternatives. So um, emphasis here is on analytical. It's all about the numbers. Okay. So um, we'll get to manipulation of the numbers later, but we're gonna do what we can here, and it's often needed for a couple of different reasons. First off, what if the alternatives are somewhat close? You really like that car, and you really like that car. You really like that school and that school, and you're having a hard time weighing those choices, weighing the differences. Um, Maybe there's a lot of criteria. That's how it was with the house. We started saying, okay, well, we want something within this budget range and within this area, this region of the area. We wanted something that had this number of rooms and this number of bathrooms and so on and so on and so forth. It got down to trees and windows and all that kind of stuff. So there might be a whole lot of criteria that you're trying to weigh, and it's really hard to do all of that right up here. So put it down in a decision matrix. What if there's controversy? This is where the drama comes in. So I've been in situations in industry where one person says we have to do it this way, or we have to get this machine, or we have to do it this way, and all you end up doing is like arguing, but you're really having a hard time putting your thumb on exactly why. And you say, well, my way has this, this, and this. And they say, well, my way has this, this, and this. Okay. So who's right? Well, that's what this is all about, trying to get rid of that kind of drama. So, um, uh, other bonuses, the way we have it set up is that it's easy to add criteria and reevaluate. So suddenly somebody else shows up and says, oh, but we need to do this. So you can easily add that on and change your matrix pretty quickly, and then see how that affects everything. And really, it helps remove the emotion from the process. A lot of people make emotional decisions, and that's not good when some things really should, at least take some analysis. Now, I don't recommend using this for like, you know, uh, romantic relationships. That's just one step too far. It's probably not a good idea. But um, when you're talking about a house or a car, or even about, when people's egos get in the way, say in a business type situation, we can remove that emotion out of it, and let reason take over. All right. So hopefully that's what is going to go on here. So the next step here is, or we're a little bit more about that background, excuse me, is that this is what this is going to end up looking like. So here is a decision matrix filled out for the selection of a transfer school. And you see on the left-hand side the different transfer schools, and above the top the criteria, what the person is looking for in a transfer school. Now we're going to go on to all the details of all the numbers and all that stuff, but what I want to show you here is we end up with scores showing the various final scores, if you will, the weighted scores of these various alternatives. Now, there might be one school that has better research focus, another school that's got a better campus or city feel to it, yada, yada, yada. So how do you balance that? Well, you put it in here and you end up with a score, and that should help you make your decision. In this case, it's clear that the second alternative here far outshines the other two. But it doesn't often work that way. Sometimes there's just a little edge, but at least gets you thinking and talking about the real issues. So again, clearly organize the criteria and the priorities, and forces that analytical evaluation of criteria and comparisons of the alternatives based on just straight up numbers. Okay, so how do we do this? First, there's a good chunk of setup, not a good chunk, just some setup, and you're going to start a spreadsheet. So if you have absolutely no spreadsheet experience, the first bit of this is you'll see it's not too bad. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, what to click in here, wait till the end of this, towards the end of this, and I'll go through that with you. So start a spreadsheet, but I also have some videos on spreadsheets as well. So Excel, Google Sheets, whatever, all that stuff's good. It'll all work out. Uh, so then create headers for the alternatives and the criteria. So like this. So here are the headers I'm talking about. Here's your header for criteria. Here's your alternatives. So these are the car models down here. So just label it as car model. You can just you can label it whatever you want, but it's usually good if you're trying to explain it to other people to have everything well labeled. I always insist on good labeling practices. Okay, so now here I have alternatives in rows and the criteria in columns. So when you do it in rows, you're going to skip the first 4 rows above the alternative. So make sure you have, these guys in here skipped. All right, and then you're going to list them one every 4 rows. So I've got one started on the 7th and the 11th. And then you're going to list the criteria in columns, but we're going to skip this column here, and go straight to, these ones right after that. Now, I actually have always done it the opposite. I've done the alternatives in columns and the criteria in rows. You can do it however you want to. I think it's because when we do the tally up, when we sum it up, I always like having that in columns. I think I changed it around for this so that things would just fit on a screen better. That's all. So it also depends. Maybe you don't have that many criteria, and you'd rather switch them up. You can do it. That's not a problem. And if you just put some uh, comments below if you want to see an example of it done switched, I can do that too. It's not that hard. But again, if you can just switch it in your mind because it works better for you, absolutely go ahead and do that. Now, um, I do things a particular way here because I've seen some of the stuff online. It always seems to lack something. So, and that's again, the purpose here is to get some of that emotion out, to look at it analytically. And so that's where the next part of the setup goes. Okay. And there we go. And now we're going to go with this, write down this parameter, scale, and weight. Not every place you see on the internet is going to show this. And it's too bad too, because some places just say, okay, for cost, I'm going to put a 1 here and a 5 here and a 3 here and a 4 here. They don't say why. This answers that question, why? Where do you get that number from? And that's where this and because you can just enter stuff in that's just like, kind of emotional. Well, we're supposed to be taking the emotion out of it, and you don't have any real why as to why you're putting this value in for that and that value in for that. So you're kind of do it more on the gut. That's what this parameter, scale, and scale are supposed to remove a little bit. So the setup is parameter, scale, and weight. And then the next bit we're going to do is for each alternative, parameter value, scaled score, and weighted score in that same column, just like this. Parameter value, scaled score, weighted score. So that's for each alternative. Now, when I was shopping for a house, I think we looked at like 10, 20 houses. So I had this set up for each and every house that we went down. And every time we visited a house, we just enter in the numbers and see how that house stacked up against the others. All right, so there's your setup. So now what happens with data formulations? Okay, so parameter, that describes a measurable trait. Cost, easy to measure. How much does it cost? Okay, so in this thing, I think we're talking about like monthly cost or something like that. Um, and I think in this case, we're going to talk about efficiency. So gas efficiency, that is clearly a measurable thing, unless you're VW. And um, units can be very helpful. So if you can get it to unit like dollars or time, your length, distance, area, whatever it is that you're looking for, try to make it something that you can put units on. Doesn't have to be, but if you can, that really, settles it. So in this case, it's miles per gallon. So for our car example here, our average efficiency, and that's measured in miles per gallon. Okay, now we've got to figure out what the scale is going to be. So it defines what's low and what's high. So 15 miles per gallon, in my mind, is kind of low. If you're looking for a big truck or something like that, then your scale is going to be different. All right. But I'm looking for a car right here. So uh, 15 miles per gallon is pretty low, but 40 miles per gallon would be good and high, like a Prius or some kind of hybrid or something like that. So I say that 15 is a 1 and 40 miles per gallon is a 5. That would be the best. So, and everything else can fall between. You'll see how we run in that. So, I mean, if you want to, you can define everything down to you can make formulas. I'm good with that. Okay. But I'm just trying to keep it simple here. So, next is to decide on the importance of each criteria from 1 to 10. Okay. And the reason why I say 1 to 10 rather than 1 to 5, is because then it is easier to keep track of. You don't get the two mixed up. Scale is different than weight, but we still need to use numbers so that we can do the calculations and stuff. Now, this importance, the weight, is maybe a source of debate. Okay, so you're you might debate what the scale is, but people are really going to debate what's important. Is it more important to have something that's uh, cost limited, or high quality, or whatever it is? Um, this kind of thing can be of debate. So it's good to have that discussion, but make a consensus. Somebody says, this is only a 3, somebody else says it's a 5, agree on 4, and then just move forward. It's really not going to make that much of a difference if you do 3 or 5 or 4. But if someone says 3 and somebody else says 10 in your team, then you really have to work with them and see what the deal is, and try to really come to understanding of what you mean by cost. Are you talking about initial cost? Are you talking about operating costs? Oh, we've got different costs involved. Okay, then you have a new criteria. Okay, so you can separate that out if you've got a new criteria, something like that. So if someone says aesthetics, well, do you mean, is it architecturally aesthetic, or is it just the color that's unaesthetic? We can change the color or whatever it is. Okay. So sometimes this whole discussion here can that's what this is about, creating a situation where you're talking about what's important, and then maybe again adding new criteria. And so then you narrow down what's going on. And one person who wanted to talk about this, another person who wanted to talk about that, instead of fighting over it, they really figured out, oh, we're talking about two different things, and now both of our things are on the board and we're both represented. That makes everybody feel better. Okay, they feel that they're being listened to. Okay, so try to figure out that kind of stuff. Again, this is the difficult part right here, deciding what that is. Okay, so in this case, I'm just saying, okay, efficiency, gas efficiency is a 7. All right, so then we go on to all the other ones. So in this case, we talk about monthly cost. Okay, so it's going to cost us X number of dollars per month, and maybe this is purchase price. Maybe we've got a loan, so we uh, um, are paying this off. Whatever. It's better to save up and pay it off all at once, and then be saving up every month. But that's a different discussion for a different day. But just say that you've got a monthly cost, and maybe you rolled it into, with gas mileage. Well, maybe that's a different thing, with the whole efficiency, blah. But you've rolled in oil changes and so on and so forth. All right. So on that one hand, that $200 cost, that could be the very top of your budget. That's all you're willing and able to do. But you'd be doing that if you had a great car. Now you know that anything that's like $100 or less is not going to be the kind of car you're looking for. It might not be, for whatever reason. That's a reasonable floor. You're not going to get something beautiful for nothing. That doesn't happen. So you got to figure out what your minimum roughly would be. So if you could get it for 90, great, and that still would be a 5. So notice how this um, is flipped. The higher number, 200, is bad. You don't want to be spending $200 a month. So that's bad. That makes it a 1. $100 a month? Oh, that's a steal. That's what I want. Okay, so that makes it a 5. So that makes it top level. So, but cost, boy, that's almost always an issue. And it's almost always a key issue. So that makes it a weight of 10. All right. More data formulations. Okay, now what do we do? Now that we've got that set up for each of the criteria, we need to decide what it's going to be for the for each of the alternatives. So we research and decide what that parameter value is. So we figure out what it's going to cost to operate the Corolla for a month, and we just enter that in. So decided it was, figured out it's going to be $150 a month, monthly payment or whatever it is. Okay, well, that happens to be right in the middle, not always all that nice, but right in the middle of our scale from 1 to 5, from 200 to 100. So that would obviously be a 3. So there it is. So you look up that scale and enter the score in for that criterion. Then the weighted scores, this after this, everything's easy, totally easy. All you do is multiply the weight times the scaled score. Simple. So you take this weight, multiply it by this, and you get that 30. Very simple. So once you have all that other stuff taken care of, then everything else is just is multiplication and addition. For the Civic, the cost is 100, and that's at the top end of our scale. We want to spend as little money as possible. That's a 5. Awesome. So that counts for a 50. Now the Corolla, for efficiency, it gets 30 miles per gallon. All right, that's kind of in the middle here. So we'll just give it a 3 and a weighted score. Oh, I don't know why that ended up being a 30. Somehow that ended up being a 30. That should be 7 times 3 is 21. So hey, my programming was a mistake. I better look at that. Civic though, yeah, this is multiplying by 10. I don't know why, but the Civic is got 20, which is at the lower end, but not quite a 1. So we'll give it a 2. So it should be 7 times 2 is 14, and 7 times 3 is 21. So we're going to go back into the spreadsheet there and find out what's wrong. So, so I'm going to say that I planned this. Obviously, I planned a lot of this out, but I didn't see that for some weird reason. Okay, so 7 times 21, or 7 times 3 is 21, 7 times 2 is 14, and we get our weighted scores. Finally, going to make a cell for the total weighted score for that alternative. And that's going to come up right here. So we add everything up. Now I got a bunch of other things down the line here. So that's why the weighted scores, the total weighted scores are going to be much higher than what you're seeing here. So so you end up with the Corolla at 177 and the Civic at 157. All right, so let's look at the whole thing here. And obviously, like I said, some things aren't, I checked the other ones. 8 times 4 is 32, 6 times 3 is 18. So I don't know why I missed up on this one. But you should have, you should be able to fill right and all that stuff. So let's look at the interpretation of this. So obviously our Corolla comes out higher than the Civic. So that's the first thing we do. Compare the weighted values to determine the better and worse choices. Now, you might have 10 cars here, but I'm just showing you 2. But you just copy and paste the next line, however it works. And if you know your spreadsheets, you should be able to do that. Now, so these weighted scores here are just added up, and you get this. And so hopefully you realize that the Corolla is a better choice. I'm not saying a better deal necessarily, because that might mean different things to different people. But for you and your situation, the Corolla is a better choice. And it's also helpful to just look down the line and see what's driving the scores. Now you notice that there's a difference of 20 here. Well, it's got a little better safety rating by 4, safety score by 4, a little better technology. By the way, what I have here is Bluetooth versus USB. This one just only has Bluetooth, but if they had CarPlay, which I use a lot, that would have a 5. Like, yeah, it's got great technology and stuff. Let's see. This one actually is lower when it comes to color. I would prefer red, but this one's blue. Distance driven is, it makes a difference here. 27 versus 18, but it's not quite as reliable, perhaps. Maybe it was a bad year, whatever. But if you look here, age, oh, that's a big difference. It has a difference of 24 here between 32 and 8. And that's really driving this difference of 20. Driving, no pun intended there. But of course, cost, yeah, this one's definitely cheaper, and that's reflected with that 50. So you can just go down the line and see what's driving the scores. And then now, of course, you can change the weights and the scales to change the things here. But that's why I set it up with these parameter and scale. Okay, so you can only go so far. Really, in this case, um, you can look at the weights. You can change the weights around a little bit so that maybe cost isn't as important, or maybe reliability or the efficiency, age isn't as important, so that you change. But why? You have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Is it because you really do like one over the other? Well, then tell you what, make a whole new criteria. Personal preference, for Pete's sake, just personal preference. Give it whatever scale you want, this and that, but don't change the other values. See what happens. Okay. So, just and also, if you're doing it as part of a team, make sure you don't just change it willy-nilly. You have to have consensus. You have to work together as a team. Okay. But I have seen it done effectively. I There was a time when I was uh, there was a guy who really wanted us to buy something from this one company. And everybody knew that his brother-in-law worked for this company, right? So we got together and we had different things that different alternatives, different places we could buy, source this material from. And we just went down the line, boom, 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 cost at on none of the criteria were my brother works for this company. Okay. That was not part of the criteria. It was, does it work? Does it have good cost? Do they have good service? Yeah, da, 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 da. And we ended up buying it from somewhere else because we got rid of what really wasn't important. Now, remember, this is neither perfect nor sacred. This is not the perfect word, but it's usually better than just people arguing, right? And it's not sacred. It's not like, well, we have to do what this tells us to. No, we don't. Often, yeah, just have to do what somebody above you tells you to do. But in this case, at least you've got something to really glom onto, especially if you're working as a team and you can all agree on this, and then you move forward. It's great. So then the other thing is that like I said, it's helpful to separate what's important and what isn't. Now, um, if you're looking to do the spreadsheet and you're really not very comfortable with spreadsheets, then bear with me, and we're going to stick around, and we're going to go through this. But if you're very familiar with spreadsheets, you totally got what I said. You've already logged off, whatever it is. Then I hope you got a lot out of it. But let's just go to the spreadsheets now. So here's a new one. I'm going on a vacation. Yay. That would be nice. But so I've got two places I can go, Florida or Maine. Now, I've already done all the setup. All I did was enter these things in these spots. Okay. I didn't do any formulas or anything amazing or anything like that. So we're just going to start here. So the cost is obviously going to be in dollars, unless, of course, you're in Canada, it's Canadian dollars, or maybe wherever you are, maybe you're in India, the rupee. Go India. Okay. So now, what about things like adventure? I like going on adventures, seeing new stuff, okay, eating different food, whatever. Some people just want to sit by the beach. That's fine. I want to do adventure. Some of these things are um, difficult to measure. All right. So I'm just going to say, I'm just going to rate it myself. Okay. So I'm taking the emotion back right into it, whatever. So the adventure level. But what if I could say number of parks? Like, I love doing national parks. So maybe national parks. So number of parks that we can get to. I just love traveling in general. So, I think we get rid of this. So if I want to get rid of this, I'm going to have to see this criteria here. I use this to merge the cells. I'm going to unmerge the cells. Click on this, right click, delete the column. Everything else goes like this. And then I'm going to remerge this as criteria. All right. So you can back that up and go slower if that's what you want to do. But how many friends can I visit? So I'll just say number of friends. We can do that. And um, There are days I just don't like I don't like doing this wicked long drives. So how many days of tough travel are there going to be? Like, I don't like flying that much either. I mean, I'll do it, it's not a problem. But it just seems to take up the whole day. It shoots the whole day. So I'm going to call that a tough travel day. So I'm going to call that number of days. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 5, um, let's just say the cost for it would be great if we could get away with, say, $500, but maybe if it was really worth it, I'd spend $2,000. All right. So a 1 equals $2,000 and a 5 equals $500. I got a big family, just letting you know. All right, so adventure, number of parks. So a 1 would be we only make it to 1 park, and a 5 would be, why not? 5 parks. That's close enough. Visit friends. So we like visiting our friends and so on. So if we could get to 1 family or 0 families, that would be unfortunate. But maybe we could get to 3. So a 5 would equal 3 families. So I'm going to just change that to families. Tough travel. Okay. I can imagine 1 day out, 1 day back. That would be kind of normal. All right. So that would be a 5. I would expect that. Well, a 5 would be only 1 day of travel, but a 1 would be, say, 4 days of rough travel. All right, that's probably the maximum I even consider. All right, at least this time around. So what's important? Weight from 1 to 10. Cost, I'm going to make it an 8. Adventure, oof. Yeah, I'm not going if it's not adventure. So that's 10. Visiting family and friends, put that on a 5. I don't like tough travel days, but again, I'm willing to do them. So I'm going to make that a 3. All right, so if we went to Florida, it would probably cost us a little bit more money. So I'm going to call it $1,500. Scaled score, that would probably be a 2 because that's closer to the 2,000, not in the middle. Well, 1,250 would be in the middle. I'm still going to call that maybe okay. Yeah, I'm still going to call that a 2. And so therefore our weighted score, and here's the first formula, equals 8 times, oops, that's plus 8 times 2. Now, notice how I didn't use 8 or 2. I just clicked on the cells. So it's C5 times C8. All right. And then going to go down here to Maine. Maine would cost us less money, probably $600. And scaled score of that would be a 5. And weighted score is also going to be equal to, click on C5 times this one. Now I can take these and I'm going to do a fill right. I select them, I grab this little lower corner and I drag all the way over here. Now I've got to change some of these parameter values and so on, but that's okay. So if we go to Florida, we could probably hit 4 parks, and that would mean that we'd have a scale of 4, a score of 4. If we went to Maine, I could, like, there's really only 1 park. I'd like to go to Acadia National Park. And so that would give us a scaled score of 1. But since it's a national park, I might go with 2, but we'll just stick with that for now. See, that's the thing. I might want to put in a new criteria. What quality of parks, right? So, all right. So going to Florida, we got lots of friends along the East Coast. So that would definitely be a 5 parameter value. We could probably hit 5 actually. I'm going to put 3 in here because that's our maximum scale. and or sorry, maximum parameter, and scaled score would be 5 because we're at the top end of that. And the weighted score is already done for us because it did that filling things. And so it just changes that column. So it's all set there. Main um, is, let's see, number of families. I know my sister-in-law would be available, so that'd be 1. Scaled score of 2, and it changes to 10. Tough travel days. Florida, that might be a couple of tough days. I know we could do various things. So probably not all the way to maximum of 4, but I could see it being, some maybe 3 tough days there. So our score would probably be 3. Maine, though, not too bad. I could probably see one day, and our scaled score should be 1. Oh, sorry. Scaled score would be 5 because that's good that we don't have that many days, and we are at 15 because 3 times 3 is 15. So now I want to add up all these things. So I type equals sum, open parentheses, and then I click here and drag and hit enter. And then I can just click on that, copy it, and then paste it. All right. And now the numbers show that Florida makes, based on my criteria, makes for a better choice than Maine. Now, why is that? Well, it's because mainly because of uh, not the cost, that's for sure, but the number of adventure things that we can do. So these two things are really driving all that. So it's plus 20 or plus 30, plus 15. So I'm going to go back over to that car example and figure out what I did wrong. Um, so let's see, 7. This is okay. It's using these dollar signs here, so I don't like that. So I'm going to make sure it's equals this times that, and then this one, same thing, equals this times that. So there are reasons for using these dollar signs up here, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But I was able to change this up, and now the Corolla is still on top, but this time only by 17 rather than by 20. Okay, so those are the spreadsheet steps. And so in review, these decision matrices help you make good decisions based on data and priorities, not so much on feelings. It forces that analytical evaluation using numbers to look at the alternatives, the criteria, and then compare those alternatives. And this is a clearly defined method, at least I hope it was, that can also be flexible. You can change your criteria, you can change this, change that, and you can change your values, but not so much. They're still within that window, and that's, again, why I like doing it with that scale and that parameter stuff. All right. And in the end, it helps remove that emotion from the process, but it is not the final word. So there might be some other things that come in, but you can put those in as well. It's flexible like that. So I hope that this was helpful to you and that you understand it. And I hope you actually make it, use it someday. And again, you don't have to use it for work or for class. You can use it for life, and it's been very effective for me. I've been able to find very good deals on cars, choose houses very well. So um, I just suggest it to anybody who is having a hard time making any kind of big decision that has a lot of alternatives and or a lot of criteria and a lot of potential emotional aspects of it, but it can really help you in any of those situations. Thanks, and have a great day.